Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this evening's town hall for Jevin Hodge from Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. We're excited to be here with each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in. If you're on the West Coast, it's 4 o'clock. If you're on the East Coast, it's 7 p.m. And if you're in the middle of America, it's somewhere in between. We're excited to have a conversation with you all today discussing the state of affairs in Arizona. And we couldn't have a better guest than Mr. Reginald Bolding, a very near and dear friend of mine and someone who is doing a tremendous job leading the state of Arizona. I'm going to provide a little bit of an introduction of Mr. Bolding. His bio reads, in 2018, Reginald Bolding was reelected to serve in a third term of the Arizona House of Representatives, where he serves as the Democratic whip. He is the ranking member on the House Education Committee and sits on the Federal Relations Committee. Rep. Bolding has established himself as one of the most respected legislators in the chamber, working on legislation focused on education, economic development, criminal justice, veterans, and civil rights. Representative Bolding has been a leading advocate fighting for issues directly impacting our most vulnerable Arizonans communities. Locally, Representative Bolding runs a civic engagement organization, the Arizona Coalition for Change, which empowers everyday citizens to grow their civic and potential power to change their communities for the better. Nationally, he serves as the chair of the Business and Economic Development chair for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. In the community, Representative Bolding sits on the board of directors for the Children's Museum of Phoenix and Leading for Change. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you this, we have a star in the house, and we are excited to welcome Representative Reginald Bolding. My dear friend, thank you for joining us today, Reginald. We appreciate you. Tell us, as we get started, tell us a little bit about you. What do you like to do in your free time?
So first, I want to say thank you, Jevin, for the kind words and introduction. Anytime I get an opportunity to be on a platform with you, it's always a great thing. And just really watching your leadership is great. Thank you all for being here. To tell you a little bit about me, I like to say, I'm a husband and a father of two beautiful little girls. And that really drives me to fight and do all the things that I currently do. I'm a former teacher, so I moved to Arizona about 12 years ago to become a special education teacher. And it was there that, really working with the kids in the classroom really helped me, find that inner passion to ensure that our kids not only receive the resources that they need in the classroom, but that they're also at a place where the system is providing them what they need. You shouldn't have to be lucky in order to actually, get by. And in our system, that's what we saw. So driven by education. My mother was a single mom who worked extremely hard to make sure that her three young boys continue to grind every day and give back to the community. And those are some of the values that drive me. A husband, father, and hard worker, and that keeps me motivated.
I love it. That's amazing. And we're truly honored to have such a dynamic leader leading the helm, carrying the torch to be an ambassador of good policy and forward-thinking progress. Representative Bolding, thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment to Arizona, and just thank you for being absolutely incredible. We appreciate you.
That's much appreciated.
So you say you're a father, right? And as I know, you have a young one, father times two recently. What has that been like? Tell us a little bit about that. How has it been being a new father times two, a state lawmaker? You have a full-time job. What is that like?
It's crazy. So my wife Simone and we actually had our daughter 5 days before the legislative session. So it was poor planning on our part. So it was a little bit of all-nighters prior to driving down to the legislature. I absolutely love being a dad. It's one of those things in which you watch someone grow and learn and discover. I love, my oldest daughter just questioning, asking why does she have to do this or that? For some, it could be a sense of frustration, but for me, what I see it is like a sense of independence, to really discover the world and and to be able to, stand up and say that, I want to know the reasons why we're doing the things that we're doing. And for so many people in our community, we just operate based on what we see, and we don't question why, whether it's in politics or whether it's in school. We just go with the flow. And in 2020, we can't go with the flow. We have to create our own destiny.
I love that. That's exactly right. So as we talk about 2020, let's lead right into it, Representative. So tell us a little bit about, as of just a few hours ago, we hear that the legislature is adjourning session on May 1st. What has happened this year? So with everything related to the COVID-19 crisis and all of the external affairs, it's completely changed what the legislative session has looked like. So can you give us a brief recap of what this session has looked like, and what are we to expect with adjournment coming up in just a few weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're giving the viewers breaking news. I mean, as people knew, a few weeks ago, we passed a skinny budget in the session, and then we went on recess out of the fear for the COVID-19 and individuals contracting it, especially being at the state capitol with people coming from a number of different places. It made sense to do a short recess. But at that time, there was a fight, especially from the Democratic caucus, to say we need to make sure that we're providing the resources that people need in the face of COVID-19 so they get the relief that they need. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get all of the wins that we hoped for. But we do know that the governor introduced executive orders with the recommendations that we gave. So we definitely are excited. We were excited about that. But again, breaking news. So what we've heard is that the speaker and the president, it is their intention to, ask the caucuses to sine die or close session on May 1st. This has been an interesting session, to say the least. Whenever you see power slipping out of the hands of anybody, people become desperate. So this session was all about desperation. We saw significant tax cuts that were being proposed. We saw voter suppression legislation. We saw bills that were attacking our LGBTQ community, and that was primarily because the majority in the legislature right now, they see the writing on the wall, and the writing says that the dynamics of the legislature are going to turn.
We're going to come back to talking about the slipping of the power in just a little bit, but tell us a little bit. So every session there's bad bills that are proposed, and you all do everything that you possibly can to make sure that the people of Arizona are protected. With the legislature signing and dying soon, and it coming to a close, does that mean, for our viewers, that effectively means that all of those bills come to a halt for this section, correct?
Yes, so a sine die or end of session, that would mean that any outstanding bill that's not currently voted on, that bill would be quote unquote dead. We use the word dead just to signify that the bill is no longer moving. But one thing that's important to know is that the governor has the ability to always call the legislature into a special session. And we're getting an indication that the governor may be looking to call special sessions to handle specific topics in order to push his agenda, which is not a good thing, because we know that there are things that need to get fixed right now in Arizona. Unemployment here in Arizona, the Arizona portion of unemployment is $240 a week. That's the most unemployment that someone can actually claim here in Arizona. That actually is one of the lowest in the nation. We need to fix that problem. And we have so many people who can't even apply for unemployment because the system's broken. Making sure that we're protecting our children in foster care, that we're providing, and the education resources that we need, because what coronavirus has actually done is it's even widening the achievement gap. So there's big issues that we need to solve, and we don't necessarily want the governor to have to just narrowly choose what issue we could talk about. With that said, we definitely want to make sure that these voter suppression bills are killed.
Now let's talk a little bit about, I hear you talk about the achievement gap, the impacts of COVID-19. Can we talk a little bit about the skinny budget? What does that entail? Is there funding for schools? Is there funding for hospitals? What does that look like? And how long does the skinny budget take effect? Because with everything being up in the air, what does the budgeting process look like for the next years to come?
Yeah, so this was an interesting budgeting process. Typically you have all 60 members on the floor, and we're debating whether or not a piece of legislation should go inside of the budget, what the numbers are. This year, the majority decided that they didn't want to negotiate with the Democratic caucus. I mean, let's just be real. They didn't want to negotiate, so they actually passed a measure that would allow for virtual voting. And this is where members could actually sit at home on their couch.
Let's hear this correctly. The legislature allowed for virtual voting, but has not allowed for all individuals to participate in a mail-in election.
Exactly.
Okay. So just making sure.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So legislators get the vote from their couch, but they don't want to make it so the members of the public can vote from there. So that's exactly what happened. And individuals can just jump on a Zoom conference and they could say whether they support or against a budget. And that's what happened this year. We had legislators who were in Prescott or in different places throughout the state who were voting online. And that allowed for the Republicans to push through, a budget. You did see some bipartisan support. There were certain pieces of the budget that was important that Democrats helped negotiate. We said in order to get any votes, we wanted to make sure that there was at least $50 million that was put in a COVID-19 relief package, and we did that. The governor still has about $40 million of those dollars left that he should be actually allocating toward things like unemployment testing and more. But the budget is insufficient for what it needs to be for this next fiscal year. With the idea, we were told that we would come back down there and solve some budget challenges, but it's looking like that's not gonna take place.
I see what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying. Let's talk a little bit about the CARE Act. The CARES Act is passed nationally, and some of the folks have seen some of the stimulus checks that have come in, and we've heard about the triumphs in small businesses not getting loans. What does that look like for the state of Arizona? How has the CARES Act impacted the state of Arizona? And we've learned that $277 million has been allocated to the Department of Education. What does that mean for the state of affairs for education? What does this mean for the Arizona people as a whole?
For the most part, when we saw, the CARES Act pass, I think in many communities, small businesses and nonprofits, they stepped back and they said, great, relief is coming at a federal level. We know that there's multiple different, plans in place. We know that, we're going to provide some relief so we don't have to lay off our employees. The government sees us. But then as we watch the rollout of, the CARES Act, specifically the Paycheck Protection Program, we saw that there were a number of gaps in that legislation. There were nonprofits and small businesses who had pre-existing relationships with banks who went in and applied to try to, get a loan through the SBA program, who were only told to wait. And they were denied that opportunity. So we saw, the shuffling of applications by some of our major banks, which is not what we should be doing. So I am excited to say that what we've seen in Congress was actually today, it looks like that there was an agreement. The Senate approved a $484 billion relief package, which will add an additional $310 billion for the PPP. So those small businesses and nonprofits that weren't able to get the first allocation of resources, hopefully they can get this allocation. But we know when you're dealing with people who need to put food on the table, every day matters. Every day matters, and we have to make sure we get those resources in their pocket as soon as possible.
While we're talking about in the vein of funding and education related funding, I'm gonna show a question from Patrick Brown. He says, how can we ensure that education in Arizona doesn't take a financial hit as it has in previous times when there's been an economic downturn?
You know, that's going to be the biggest thing that is going to be the most important thing that we can have a conversation about. I mean, as you mentioned, $277 million from the federal government went to the Department of Education, and those dollars are going to be re-granted to school districts and charter schools based on if students if they were Title I students, so students who lived in poverty. One thing that we cannot let happen is we can't let the governor say, since we're getting $277 million from the federal government, let's cut the state portion, $277 million. So they want to essentially try to replace the money that we're getting from the feds. We cannot let that happen. You know, and Patrick, you know, thanks for that question. You know, one of the things that Republicans and Democrats have been pushing since 2008 was that we fully fund education. And we thought this year that we'd see some agreement. You know, the governor in his State of the State said, we're going to fully fund education. Republicans, they said, we're going to be the education party. They saw what happened with Red for Ed, and they see those implications. But in this skinny budget, they decided not to fully fund K-12 education. They only gave K-12 education the resources that they received in the last budget. So in order to make sure that it doesn't take a fiscal hit, we have to speak up, and we have to speak not only with our voices, but also with our vote this August and November.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the voter engagement. We have a question that just came in from Jesse Avalos. Jesse says, expanding digital signatures for more down ballot races in the future. We just met the signature requirement deadline on April 5th. But school board candidates still have time, and nonpartisan candidates that are running at the municipal level still have time to collect signatures. Has there been any discussion around participation or reform to increase participation, civic participation, or folks running for office?
You know what? So what we've seen at the legislature has been a straight attack on not only the electoral process, in many different ways, but also the candidate participation process. At the same time, in one breath, you see legislators making it harder for people to participate in democracy for everyone else, but make it easier for themselves. So what people may not know is that the state legislature, or people running for state or federal office, they're the only people that can get electronic signatures online. But if you're running a ballot initiative, you can't get a digital signature. If you're running for county supervisor, you can't get a digital signature. School board, you can't get a digital signature. And the reason why they said it's because of potential fraud. But my question is, why is it okay for a legislator to get a digital signature, but not anyone else? And that's primarily because what we've seen has been an attack on local control. One of the biggest things that we talked about was making sure that school board members and others, they have access to digital signatures. Even our ballot initiative process, we've pushed for that. It's looking like with Sign Die coming May 1st, that may not be an option here in the state legislature. But there are initiatives and there are processes in place that could help get us closer there. That's why we have to stay so civically engaged.
Completely agree. It's more important than ever. In the vein of civic engagement, let's talk a little bit about the protests that we've been seeing. We saw yesterday there was a very large protest down at the state capitol. What are your thoughts? How do you believe this is going to impact the state? How do you believe this is going to impact the county? And what do you believe this means for engagement, broadly speaking, moving forward?
You know, there comes a point in which we have to take a step back and we have to say, are we putting the public at risk? Are our political values more important than life or death? Because when you're talking about, COVID-19 and the coronavirus, protests that we're seeing, they're essentially saying that the economy and the health of others is actually not as important as it should be, and that's a huge mistake. We support the economy. The economy has to continue to grow and thrive. But with that said, we can't put people's health at risk. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of lawmakers down there who are demanding that people risk their life even in the face of this crisis. And I think that's something that we should not allow to be happening.
Right. And now more than ever, it's so important that we remember this conversation. We remember this in November, so that we can continue to exercise our civic right and our civic engagement. When folks are not prioritizing, right, the will of the people and they're putting everything else before them, this is something that the everyday citizen can have the choice over. We just got a great question in the vein of everything that we're talking about that just came in from Trevor Paxton. Trevor's talking about with the White House recently publishing the Open Up America guidelines, and with input from Dr. Tony Fauci, that details 3 phases with criteria that needs to be met in order to reopen each state. He echoes Mayor Gallego's sentiments in wanting to know what Governor Ducey is planning as far as the future of Arizona with regards to ensuring the state's safety, especially given the loose guidelines around giving each state their own responsibility to end the stay-at-home order. Question that he's proposing to you, Representative Bolding, is: are there any insights? Have you heard anything about the opening up of the state and public participation moving forward?
So we have heard a few different things, and what we've heard recently is that the governor is going to follow the lead of the president. What we've seen from a number of governors across the country is you have some governors that will follow the president's lead, even if it's directly off of a cliff. We also have, some who are saying that there's some things that I support, some things that I'm with you on, but there's other things that I'm not. And then we have other governors who said this is just not right for public health, and we're going to continue a stay-at-home order no matter what the federal government says. Here in Arizona, Governor Ducey has indicated that he's going to follow the lead of the president. Which makes me believe that the beginning of May, Arizona's stay-at-home order won't be actually reenacted. So right now, the end of April is when the stay-at-home order ends. I don't believe that the governor is going to extend that order. So from everything that I've heard, and everything that I've been in conversation with people about, it looks as if that probably May 1st would be the day in which the governor is going to allow the stay-at-home order to no longer be in effect.
To be lifted and putting everyone's life at risk, right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to see. We have a great question that just came in from David Jaffe. And David Jaffe just asked, what can the state do for immigrant families whose loved ones has immigrant visa applications being frozen?
This is a hard time for our community. The reason why I love Arizona is because you have such a diverse community, people from all walks of life, people who represent a number of different races, nationalities, ethnicities. Our differences make us stronger, and that's something that we can never forget, and that's something that we have to always remember. We can't allow our differences to create fear. I mean, what we've seen out of the White House has been, our differences being used as an edge to create fear in our country, and that is unacceptable. What I would say is that this is a time for us to show what true allyship looks like. We have friends who are attorneys, if we have friends who are in elected office, if we have friends that can help apply pressure to the political system, community leaders and organizations that can help apply pressure to the political system in order to help as many people as possible, we have to do that. It looks like with the president's executive order, it's going to be harder than ever for individuals to get in this country. And that should not be the way it is here in the United States. And we have to make sure that we do whatever we can to push back.
Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more. And I guess it's that time in the show, Representative, to start talking about politics. In the Arizona State House of Representatives, we're 2 seats away from having the majority, 1 seat away from a tie. What does that mean? Walk us through, what does that mean? And how can we, when the chamber ties, or when the Democrats are in the majority, what does this mean for the future of Arizona?
There are a number of important issues that matter. Issues like making sure that people have access to healthcare, making sure that our children are able to go to schools in which they have the appropriate hardware and software to actually compete. There's issues such as having fair access to voting. There's so many issues regarding criminal justice reform, making sure that our small businesses receive the support. These issues that directly impact people's lives are at play and are hang in the balance. Right now, as you mentioned, there is a 1 vote difference in the state legislature, 31 Republicans and 29 Democrats. So that means if we pick up 1 seat in the Arizona House of Representatives, you create a 30-30 legislature on the House side, which means that you have the ability to call the shots and make sure that we can get that health care that we need.
And that means equal representation on all committees. That means that you have a voice in the process. Can you walk us through, for some of our viewers that may not understand what that means and the significance of it?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, at the current practice that the legislature is in, whoever has the majority, you create all of the rules. So if you're in the majority, you can decide everything as little as what parking spot the minority party is going to be in. So essentially, by becoming in the majority, we have the ability to actually have that equal representation on committees, so we can push for the things that we care most about in our community, and we can fight to make that happen. Again, there is a 1 vote difference. People think that Arizona is so extreme. I've heard people say Arizona is just a deep red state. It's never going to change. But if you don't realize, we are 1 vote away from flipping the dynamics of what our state looks like. What we always used to say is Arizona was once a place of hate, but now it's a battleground state. Let's do it.
Now look at that. Now, once a place of hate, now a battleground state. And if you indulge in me just for a second, that's why all positions that are at play are so important. You look at the County Board of Supervisors. This is what I'm branding as the most impactful government body that most people know absolutely nothing about. 5 people govern 4.4 million people. They manage a $2.5 billion budget. And exactly like the Arizona House of Representatives, we're 2 seats away from having the majority. And so right now there is a 1-4 deficit. When I'm elected in November, we'll be at 3-2. And when Whitney Walker's elected in November, we'll be at 3-2. And that's the reason why it's so vitally important that we pay attention to every seat and every position and every candidate that's running at every level of government. So, Representative, you talk about the 1 seat, you talk about civic engagement. We haven't even talked about the Arizona Coalition for Change. You mind telling us a little bit about that, about the Arizona Coalition for Change?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and many people know me from the work at the state legislature. But my passion is community engagement. It's power building, and making sure that our communities who are most affected by policies that they have a seat at the table. And in 2016, myself, my wife, we were able to launch an organization called the Arizona Coalition for Change, which primary purpose is to empower everyday citizens to make change in our community. You don't have to be an elected official. You don't have to be a candidate running for office. You don't have to be a teacher or a doctor in order to make change in your community. You can make change by simply saying that I'm going to connect with a group of people. I'm going to learn the process, and I'm going to advocate. Because what we know is that in order to create power, you need 3 things. And this is what viewers have to remember. You need 3 things to create power. You need organized people. You need organized money, and you need a position of influence. And through the Arizona Coalition for Change, we're definitely trying to organize people and making sure that we are in a position to have organized money so we can get people like you elected to office, because we know that third level of change is the positions who actually cast the vote. So we have to make sure that happens. So the Coalition for Change will be registering 25,000 people this year. We had a little bit of hiccup with COVID-19, but our staff, they're registering people online. We're in Phoenix and Tucson, and we're going to keep going.
That's absolutely incredible. That's absolutely incredible. We have some comments coming in. We have the president of East Valley NAACP, Mr. Roy Tatum, just said, let's use our time wisely while at home to engage voters, and we should support an all mail-in vote option. I completely agree with that. I know you agree with that, Representative Bolding. So what can some of the individuals at home be doing right now to engage civically, to participate in their democracy, to get involved and to get in and engage and empowered?
You know what? So there's a few different things. And there is a website that I want to definitely push traffic to if people don't know about it. And it's azfairelections.com. So let me tell you about that. So right now that there is a ballot initiative, which is azfairelections.com, and it's Arizona for Fair Elections. And this ballot initiative would create automatic voter registration for this state. It also would create campaign finance reform, and it will actually level the playing field for all Arizonans. Because what we know right now is because of the high contribution limits and because of money in politics, people don't get an equal say. One of the things that we know that's important is that when you vote, you have the ability to let your voice be heard. With the Arizonans for Fair Election, that ballot initiative there will provide not only an opportunity for all people to actually get registered, but also for them to become part of the permanent early voter list. So Mr. Tatum is right on board there when he says we should not be in a position where everyone is not all on an all mail-in vote. So you should at least have that option.
And tell us a little bit about that. So currently, what does our system look like? Can you talk a little bit about the permanent early voters list, the PEVL system, and how to get involved?
Yeah, so this is important to know. The majority of all of the elections here in the state of Arizona are decided by people who receive their ballots in the mail, and they have 30 days to actually research the candidates. They can, wait to receive someone knocking on their door. They can wait to receive phone calls, mailers. They can actually take their time to really study up on the candidates prior to voting. Because when you go down to the voting booth, you literally have, the 2 minutes or 5 minutes to make a decision. And whenever you're rushed to make a decision, sometimes you don't make the best choices. So once you get your ballot in the mail, which is easy, you just sign up to get your ballot in the mail. It's so simple. You can literally go to servicearizona.com, and that will allow you to sign up to get your, not only if you're not registered, it'll allow you to register to vote. And then if you want to go through the process of signing up to get your permanent early voter list, you can do that as well. And you'll get your ballot. You take it and you fill it out. And if you're one of those people like myself and my wife, we like to go on election day and drop it off at the poll so we can get our sticker. You can do that too. But it's your choice, and we would encourage you to do that. God forbid that there's a storm here in Arizona that's happening on election day, or things that are happening on election day that you just run out of time. We don't want to take that risk, so let's go ahead and get that ballot in the mail.
Let's get that ballot in your mail. And that's another reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the bottom of the screen, it's servicearizona.com. I challenge 5 people right now who may or may not be registered to vote to check and double check and triple check to see and get on that PEVL list, to get on the permanent early voters list. It will make a significant difference, and invite 3 friends to do so that they can do so too. You talk about being an activist and being involved in your local government and participating civically. This is exactly how you can do so. Getting involved, getting registered, advocating for folks to participate in their democracy and in their engagement. I want to take a brief moment right now just to thank everyone that has been with us. We've had several viewers that's been hanging on with us. We're about 35 minutes in. Thank you, Representative Bolding. Moving on to the next item, we have a question that came in earlier today from Richard in Tucson. Richard asked, He said the University of Arizona is predicting a major loss of income related to this current economic crash. What are some of the Pima County implications, and are there some potential recommendations? I'm going to take this one and expand it just a little bit. Because we have the community college system around the state. We have Northern Arizona State University, Arizona State University, University of Arizona. Can you speak a little bit about our university and higher education system, Representative?
You know, this is a really important question, especially making sure that we have the ability to talk about our colleges. And I just want to pause for a second to say higher education is so important. I know I can tell you 100% without fact. If it wasn't for education, I wouldn't have the ability to be having this conversation with you right now. So I'm forever going to be an educator and forever going to be fighting for education for our kids, because education is the great equalizer. It is something that people can never take from you. And it literally has provided an opportunity for me and my family, to experience so much. What's happening right now is that you have a number of, schools in which they're seeing a drastic decrease in registration, whether it's tuition, whether it's individuals who are staying on campus. Many universities actually refunded students for those who were living on campus. And there is a significant drop in students, international students coming to our universities. And if you know anything about ASU has been able to actually keep tuition low for low-income students because they charge out-of-country students more. And that's something that Michael Crow has not been shy about. They charge the sticker price plus to out-of-country students. That way they can keep tuition very low for those in-state students here. Now we're in a position where with the order, you're not going to have out-of-country students coming in to ASU. And even prior to that, with COVID-19, there are a lot less students who are going to be traveling. So the question means, what does that mean for our current students? And I'm going to tell you that it's potentially going to, it could potentially be tuition increases, which is not okay. If we could find resources for everything else, we have to find resources for our students. We can't price people out of higher education. So the hard decisions are going to come down to, one, the state stop allowing for tax cuts. And if you don't know this, 26 out of the last 27 years, Arizona has cut taxes. Why does that matter? Because every single time we cut taxes, that's less money that goes into the pot, which means that's even less money that goes into our universities. And that has an effect on tuition rates and everything else. So we have to make sure that we are, anytime you hear anything about corporate tax cuts, you need to be fired up and say, no, because I want to have an affordable higher education. Or no, I want to have access to healthcare. Or no, I want to make sure our K-12 kids get the resources that they need. It's all connected. We just have to make sure that we're putting the dots together.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. While we're on the topic of education, what can we do to support our K-12 system right now with our schools providing meals at home, with our teachers and distance learning? Do you have any advice to parents? Do you have any advice to our community around what can we do to support our K-12 students?
Yeah, this is one of those things where, if you are privileged to have a couple of old iPhones sitting around or old tablets, like many, especially a lot of folks who are in politics or those who may upgrade every year, that's just collecting dust. This might be a time to say, you know what, this tablet that I have that may be a year or two old, I'm not using it. How can I put it in the hands of somebody else that can? Where can I make a contribution? How can I fit? I was just at a friend's a conference that he held online, in which he talked a little bit about, how he's helping individuals through Zoom conferences to do homework. So if you have a skill that you can help, a neighbor or a cousin or a sister, jump on Zoom and help somebody, help someone else. If you can provide, a wireless device, a hotspot to someone, do that, because we have to make sure that everyone has access.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep. Yeah. Talent is distributed equally. Opportunity is not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Representative Bolding, you are a wealth of knowledge, and I speak very confidently for the people of the great state of Arizona when I say we are fortunate to have you in the state legislature. We are fortunate to have you in leadership. Thank you, my friend, for your service, for your dedication, for your love. We can feel it. We can feel it, and we're so grateful for you. What are your closing thoughts? Do you have any closing thoughts for viewers today?
Yeah, so first I do want to say again, thank you for providing this platform. You're giving people an opportunity to connect with, business leaders, nonprofits, elected officials, and you're already showing your leadership. You've been showing that leadership, and I think you'll just continue to, blossom this entire county and in this state when you're elected to the County Board of Supervisors. So. I know that I'll be doing whatever I can to fight for you. I just want to say that, right now, it's important for each one of us to realize that we have the power in and of ourselves to change the dynamic of our circumstances. We've been blessed with an opportunity to pause, to think, to reflect. Some people may say the plan, or some people may say the plot. The next ideas that will help move our state forward, an opportunity for us to grow, to become healthier, to demand more of our system, and to really take back our state. And I am excited to work in partnership with you and so many others to make sure that, even in the face of COVID, they're not going to stop the power and passion that we have for our community. And I'm excited to be on this journey with you.
Representative Bolding, thank you so much. We give you a virtual round of applause. We're so grateful for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I strongly encourage you to follow this man on Twitter, like his Facebook page, get his updates, sign up for his email list, do everything that you can possibly can to support, donate to his campaign. We need Representative Bolding in elected office. We are grateful for him. We're thankful for you, Representative Bolding, and we're going to let you go. So thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much today for joining us and participating. It's been 45 minutes strong, and we had a dynamic conversation on the state of affairs in Arizona with State Representative Minority Whip Reginald Bolding. I want to thank each and every one of you for participating and joining us. I want to give a special shout out to Marcus, National Community Leader. He is the former African-American director for Senator Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. He said today that he's willing to match someone $250 who's willing to invest. You can join and sign up for our movement today at JevinHodge.com. Thank you so much for your support. Please do not hesitate to reach out. You have any questions, comments, concerns, anything, I'm here with you. We will get through this together, I promise. Our next virtual town hall will be held on Tuesday, May 5th at 4 p.m. right here on your couch, at your computer, or on your cell phone. Next time, we will have Representative Fudge from Ohio's 11th District, a tremendous leader in the United States Congress, is going to give us an update on what's happening at the federal level. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. I love you dearly. We will get through this together, I promise. Sign up today, join the movement, get involved. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a great one.